Good morning, everyone. So today I want to talk a little bit about some original research we've been doing at Global over the past year and take a look into the future, looking at how the nation is moving into the home stretch of the pandemic. So I'm sure that we're all very well aware of how much our whole worlds have changed over the past year in ways that we never imagined. Nearly half of us have said that we've reevaluated our lives in the past year, and on top of this, a third of us say that our lives are very different compared to this time a year ago. And this change has crept into every aspect of our lives, as the stats on this slide clearly show. From our relationships to how we spend our time, to how we choose the brands we love and the media we consume, no area of our lives has been left untouched during the pandemic. So it's been a massively turbulent time. And in turbulent times such as these, and when the pace of change is so breakneck, it's really important that we put more effort into understanding people and behaviour so we can connect with them authentically and with empathy. And that's what we've tried to do at Global this year. With our research partners, Dynata and Taluna, we've spoken to over 12,000 people since March last year using our Voice of the Nation tracker. We cover how people are behaving, what's important to them, how they're feeling, and this has massively helped us to ensure that not only our own output is appropriate with the right tone and covering the right topics, but also allowed us to help clients and agencies to do the same. And with the brilliant rollout of the vaccine and the plans for easing lockdown starting on the 8th of March, lots of our clients are asking us what the future looks like. What are people looking forward to? How can brands and media connect with people in the short and medium term? And what are the implications for the longer term future? But before we come on to this, what makes where we are now so important? So the past year has been characterised by fear and uncertainty. We've been asking people how they feel in each wave of our research, and invariably the two key emotions that have dominated are fear and uncertainty. This chart shows the percentage of people that have felt scared and unsure over the past year. And we can see that feeling scared, which is the light blue line on the graph, tracks largely in line with lockdown periods. We see spikes in March, in October, and in January. Uncertainty is slightly different, and we can see that it actually increased when we were out of lockdown. We were most unsure when we didn't have rules. What is definite, though, is that there's a clear downwards trend in both fear and uncertainty. After the most recent announcement on the easing of lockdown, and as the vaccine rollout goes well, fear and uncertainty have reached the lowest level for a year at the beginning of last week. And this has massive implications because we know that when fear and uncertainty are high, the way we make decisions changes. Psychological experiments have shown that when we're under stress or feel fear, we make decisions that are good for the short term, but that disregard the longer term impact. When we're uncertain, on the other hand, we're more likely to become paralysed and stop making decisions altogether. And the implication for this is that for the past year, people have been living in what we've termed pandemic paralysis, living in the moment or for the very long term and disregarding the medium term. But as we move out of this culture of fear and uncertainty, we think we'll very quickly move through periods of dreaming and of planning where the medium term becomes more important. We start thinking about possibilities and choices and putting timelines on these. And when we move into action, doing all of the things that we've been missing. So have we started to think about the future? Have we moved on to planning or even the action stage of this process? Let's look at the evidence. So one of the big things we've missed over the past year are our holidays. Although some of us managed to get away last summer, we regressed after this into a time where we were unable again to go away. We've been asking people for the past 3 months if they've been browsing or searching for a variety of different purchases over the past month. The blue lines on the chart are browsing and properly searching for UK holidays, and the grey are for holidays abroad. What we saw was a relatively flat picture up till January, where around a third of us were browsing for holidays. However, we saw a marked change as we moved into February and in the lead up to Boris's easing announcement, with a 35% increase in browsing for UK holidays and a 22% increase in browsing for holidays abroad. And encouragingly, we can see that people are starting to talk about when they will be able to go on holiday, not just if. And straight after the announcement that travel might be allowed after the 17th of May, this planning tipped over into action. Thomas Cook said that traffic was up 100% on the afternoon of the easing announcement, and EasyJet reported a massive 630% surge in bookings on the same afternoon. So there's evidence that we're starting to plan life after COVID when it comes to booking a holiday. But what about our lives and big purchase decisions? We've seen that over the course of the pandemic, we've been more likely to delay rather than prioritise some different life events. Whether that's getting engaged, getting married, moving house, buying cars, or other big purchases, we've been more likely to put them off rather than prioritise them as we remained in our pandemic paralysis. However, again, very recently, during the first 3 weeks of February, we've seen that there's been a slow move towards prioritising rather than delaying. If we look at getting engaged, for example, we could see quite consistently that around 11% said they would be prioritising it and around 8% would be delaying it. However, over the past 3 weeks, we've seen this pattern shift. And around 2 weeks ago, 16% said they would be prioritising getting engaged and only 6% would be delaying it. We can also see a similar picture for moving house, buying a car, and for buying a new PC. And although it's very early days, we can tentatively say that we're starting to move our plans from the back burner and prioritise those life events that we've put on hold. So it looks like we're moving our dreams into reality and also moving our life events from the back burner to the forefront of our lives. But what are we most looking forward to doing, and when do we think we'll do it? Straight after the announcement about the easing of restrictions, we asked 500 people when they were going to be doing all of these activities. Now, the blue bars refer to doing each of the things within weeks of them being allowed. The dark blue is the proportion that will do it as soon as they can. The mid blue is within days, and the light blue is within a few weeks. The grey bars are the proportion of people that either say they're in no rush or that they'll never do it. So, for example, 41% of us say that we'll be seeing family and friends as soon as we can. 28% will be having drinks outside as soon as it's allowed, while 29% say they're in no rush. Shopping, going to the hairdressers, going out for a meal and going for drinks are all important for us to do quickly. And we're going to be prioritising holidays at home before we venture abroad. However, what's important here is that different elements of life are important to different groups. For example, parents of primary school kids are much more likely to want to get out and have a drink, probably after being stuck in homeschooling hell. Whereas young are keen to be able to get back to gigs and back to the office, and women are more interested in going to the hairdressers than men. So the point of this is that we need to understand our audiences, look into what their priorities are and how we can help them make transitions that are smooth for them. So we're looking forward to doing lots of things that we've missed, but how much confidence do people have about when we'll be back to normal overall? After the easing off announcement, we asked people to predict when they thought life would return to normal. So what we can see here is that less than half of people think that life will be back to normal by July, despite the government's intention to lift all restrictions by this date. When we spoke to people and probed on this, what we found is that although they're hopeful, they're also uncertain about whether the government's plans would play out. And having been burnt when restrictions were lifted last summer, are cynical about when things might change. Having said that, nearly half of us say that we're fairly confident that we'll be able to make some plans, and a quarter of us said we'd actually already made plans literally the day after the announcement, again reflecting the hope that we'll be able to do all of the things that we want. So finally, a note on tone. We know how important it is to be able to connect with empathy, to reflect the mood of the nation at times of uncertainty. We've asked people what they would like more of in their lives over the past 9 months, and what we've found has been really fascinating. It's interesting that people are less likely to want understanding and empathy than a bit of normality, a bit of positivity or laughter as we've progressed through the pandemic. That need for empathy has actually declined. It's also the case that different audiences have very different needs. For example, we saw that our heart audiences crave connection and getting in touch with others, whereas our capital audiences have a greater need for laughter and adventure, which has allowed us to dial up or down these kinds of tone or content and advise our advertisers to do the same. So what does all of this mean? The great news is that we're dreaming and starting to plan all of the things we've missed. Our holidays, our visits to loved ones, our purchases and our big life decisions are now moving into the limelight. And the government's easing plans would accelerate this. But what can media owners, brands and advertisers do to move with people? First of all, we think that agility is absolutely key. Whether that's in your brand strategy, in your media plans or in your content, we've seen how quickly things can change. And the key thing here is to be able to roll with the punches and adapt as the situation changes. Choose media that can be dialed up or dialed down quickly and easily, and radio is perfect for this. The second piece of advice is to know what you stand for and engender trust. We know that people are reevaluating their relationships with brands right now in a new world and on new criteria, and this presents a huge opportunity. Now is the time to build brands and to establish trust that is so important in a world of uncertainty and one where people need reassurance when they're cynical of timescales. Establishing extra share of voice and investing above your share of market has been recognised by Binet and Field as a key driver of market growth, and right now could be a unique time to establish that 10% extra share of voice that's needed to achieve the 0.6% annual growth that Binet and Field tell us is possible. First mover advantage in advertising will be important as we move forward into our new world. And finally, one size doesn't fit all right now, and people are sensitive to getting it wrong and cynical and wary of the future. Understand your audiences, follow their rhythms, and make sure you stay in tune with their needs. Thank you very much.